inherency. Fishery management is based on maintaining egg and larval populations for fish ideally at a level above 40% of the unfished population. The second point under inherency is that older fish produce way more offspring. Policy doesn't account for this. The third argument under inherency is that slot size restrictions are restrictions that impose that say what the minimum and maximum size of fish you can fish is, which means that commercial fisheries, or people that are fishing in these U.S. fisheries, aren't going to be able to fish the biggest fish or the smallest fish. The fourth argument under inherency is that some fisheries already use slot size restrictions, but they're not widespread and not mandated by the U.S. government. Plan. The U.S. federal government should implement slot size restrictions on ocean fisheries within its jurisdiction. Again, the U.S. federal government should implement slot size restrictions on the ocean fisheries within its jurisdiction.
We get a copy.
Right out of place.
Sorry.
Solvency will do this through normal means. They're not going to do it, whatever. Okay. Solvency will do this through normal means. There's already existing research, there already exists research and infrastructure to do this. It just needs to be implemented. The second point of solvency is it solves for fish populations. It solves for fish populations because larger fish are able to produce so much more larvae that preventing the biggest fish from being caught by these nets or from being fished means that those are the ones that are going to uniquely produce a lot more babies. First advantage is ground fish. First point under uniqueness is the ground fish population is on the brink of the status quo. There's 40 fish populations that are managed by the U.S. government, and 10 to 20 of them are subject to overfishing. The B subpoint is that all major fish populations in the South Atlantic are suffering right now, suffering from overfishing and status quo. This is obviously a really big deal. The C subpoint is that the UN estimates that a third of the U.S. fish populations is overexploited / depleted. The two argument under uniqueness is that current policy doesn't solve because in Oregon, Berkeley researchers found a decline in the average age of cod from 9.5 years to 6.5 years. This change was enough to reduce the larva output rate by 50%. To the links. This exponentially increases the population because larger or older fish are able to produce so much more offspring. An example of this is rock bass larvae older rock bass were able to produce. Rock bass larvae of older rock bass grew 4 times faster than middle of their life rock bass larvae did. The second link is that older fish have more resistant immune systems, which means they're more likely to survive and also pass these immune systems on to their larvae, which means that the fish population is more sustainable. The third link is that fish species are mobile, so populations can rebuild in U.S. fisheries. This solves for global overfishing because if U.S. fisheries are allowing these populations to rebuild, then they're mobile, they go elsewhere. It solves for global overfishing. Also, international pressure that's empirically evidenced by the fact that we were able to put more pressure on Japan for their whaling and dolphin killing after we implemented, changed our fishing restrictions. Impact. Biodiversity collapse is the impact of this advantage in the Caribbean. The loss of this empirically demonstrated in the Caribbean, the loss of a parrotfish has caused the reefs to be much less healthy, and coral reefs are hosts of millions of organisms. This can cause algal bloom. This has already empirically happened in areas of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. Which algal bloom chokes out species. If we continue to overfish, a larger algal bloom could literally cause a biode collapse. Another link to biode collapse that is link cod. They eat everything, which is key to checking explosive populations, which could cause biode collapse. But they're being overfished right now, and the fossil records show that 10% of species loss can cause a mass extinction. So we need to avoid that brink in any way possible. The biggest impact of the round, obviously, is extinction. Second advantage is natives. First one in the uniqueness is that the groundfish is that a decline in groundfish is bad for native populations because people in Hawaii and Alaska get most of their diet from ground from fish and seafood. The two subpoint uniqueness is that restrictions cause a cultural decline because these fisheries. Okay, Okay, so the thesis of disadvantage is that when we overfish our fisheries, then they end up getting closed. And when you close a fishery, so they just say once a fishery is overfished, they're just closed for everyone. No one can fish there. That includes the native people that aren't even the ones that are overfishing it, but they're affected by this because they're not allowed to fish there. So, like an example, in 2012, in January of 2012, fishing restrictions in Alaska closed large amounts of fisheries that restricted the fishing of all native populations. So the slot size restrictions mean that the fisheries never close because it's the only way to solve it's the only way to allow people to keep fishing there, and it also solves for the populations, which means that they don't have to close, which means that U.S. native which means that native people don't lose rights to their cultural practices. They also don't lose rights to the food they eat. This is good. Secondly, that is uniquely good for natives because it prevents trawling, which is like a particularly a particularly bad way of fishing that you can't do in the world of slot size restrictions, which means that natives that now have more access to these fish whereas they're all going to big corporations like fishing operations right now. And natives have already asked courts to do things like this plan, to give them more control over their fisheries. Cultural violence is the impact of disadvantage. Cultural violence is irreversible because once a culture is gone, eradicated, it can never be brought back. Many cultural practices are also necessary for survival. So we're uniquely targeting these people. The plan prevents politics of disposability. This is the internal link to all violence. When we can ignore someone's value to life, when we can just say that the ability for U.S. fishing corporations to fish is more important than these people to have their cultural rights and their identity. That's the internal link to all violence because we're taking away all of their value to life. This is also a cyclical impact because First Nation people are uniquely screwed over. They're screwed over more than anyone. Not only did we take over their land, but now we're also we're saying they can't even fish. This has been going on for hundreds of years, and the judge has an obligation to stop it right now. You need to prefer the probability of this impact. You're always going to have a moral obligation to prefer this 100% probability impact over any nebulous nuclear war scenarios caused by some politics just said that they're probably going to read or something. Means that you vote here every time.
So it's going to be case in order. 1, 2, 3. Feel free to jump in.
Do I need the solvency?
Sorry?
Do I need the solvency page?
Yes. Only that will be under off case. Okay. Chief, is it okay if I sit?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. Is everyone ready? Yep. You guys ready?
Yeah.
First up, they're parametricizing. This is going to be really unfair because they're talking about a specific issue. We're expecting that they were going to talk about the entire resolution. However, the standard should be not predictable. It's going to skew us out of a lot of ground, and we're going to decrease our strategy because we can't talk about the general issues. If we prepare just as for a specific thing, then we're not going to be able to run them because they will you can vote fairness and education to the independent of off theory voting issue because it's theory. Okay, they talk about normal means. They don't specify what these normal means are going to be. They have to specify this. So they're going to talk about a specific plan that implements a specific policy. Go to advantage 1. First, there's all causes. This is going to be global warming and pollution. This is going to be terminal defense on this first advantage because what they're doing here is not going to be enough. Or sorry, there are alternate causes. There are alternate bigger reasons why the fish are decreasing. They're not going to be able to solve via this. Specifically, pollution, because pollution is increasing this fast. They're going to have any effect to say global warming is a 100% probable impact. We have to talk about this rather than talking about just decreasing the fishing. Fishing is also going to be a bigger impact because we need to talk about global warming because it's going to affect a greater number of people and a greater number of things, and it has a 100 probable likelihood. Okay, go to B. They don't say how they're going to say how they're going to increase this and how they're going to solve this. They talk about how old fish have a greater number of eggs they produce, but young fish also have a high number of eggs they produce. They produce 80% of many eggs as the older fish. So just because they're going to increase the older fish is only going to increase it by 20%. Also, turn on Japan. This is going to increase backlash on Japan. Japan's going to do the opposite of what they say because the Democratic Party of Japan is